this schedule really shapes up for a playoff run with a 12-team playoff.
Areas that, you need to get from experience, which is just, hey, I need to make quicker decisions.
How do you define success for this team?
National championship.
What's going on, y'all? I'm Bud Elliott. This is the Cover 3 College Football Podcast, and it's my summer school series where we try to talk as many D1 teams as we can. Today, the Hokies, Virginia Tech. I'm going to VT Scoop. It's my man, Kolby Crawford. Kolby, welcome to the show, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bud. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, 6-win season last year, fell a little short of expectations. What's kind of the tone inside the program right now for the Hokies?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm getting this question a lot, and it's a good thing this segment's called Summer School because, shoot, all summer I'm going to be in school trying to learn. You got 2 brand new coordinators coming in, about 20 transfers, 20 new high school kids, so maybe about 40-ish brand new players. So much brand new. So I think we're all just trying to figure out where this team's going to be going into fall camp. So a lot of really new schemes, a lot of new players trying to form fit. Like you said, last year, definitely a disappointing season with now you saw 5 draft picks last year, a lot of talent and a pretty workable schedule last year in the ACC, but it didn't go exactly their way. So bouncing back with a completely new slate, it's really a lot of question marks.
Offensively, I guess we'll start there. Philip Montgomery, the new coordinator, kind of has a rep as a bit of a QB guru at times. What are we expecting from this offense? Because he also has a rep of a guy that wants to spread it out and go pretty quick. I mean, he was on a lot of those Baylor teams. What are they going to run?
Yeah, when you talk about those Baylor teams with RG3, that Heisman season, I mean, really a get up to the line, go quick, spread them out, vertical passing threats, and that's a lot of what we expected. But then, talking to him even through the spring, he talked a lot about we got to establish and build these things off the running game, which was a little surprising. But, they bring in 4 transfer running backs, Braden Bennett from Coastal Carolina, Terrion Stewart from Bowling Green, Marcellus Hawkins from Central Missouri, true freshman Jeff Overton Jr. He's a little banged up, but still you got so many brand new running backs, and I think they're really trying to establish it off the run, then the pass option. But, I mean, then they bring in transfer wide receivers like Cam Seldon from Tennessee. We talk about all those brand new faces, but you still have the returning quarterback, Kyron Drones, which he's he doesn't want to put the comparison tag on anyone to RG3 or certain things, but he has those certain traits, being able to extend plays, get out of the pocket, big arms, spoken very highly of him. And we'll see in the spring game, you had some 4 out wide sets. You had the big splash play. I mean, it was a very vanilla spring game, but they had a double pass touchdown from Aiden Green, the returning wide receiver, to the transfer Cam Seldon. So I think a little bit of trickeration, but definitely I think more vertical threat than you saw a year ago.
They have the guys to run that, you think?
I think so. I think they're still looking for a couple guys in this spring window as they're looking around. I think ideally they're going to, if not, bring in 1 wide receiver this window as well. I think they like the guys in that room, but there's a big discrepancy. In the fall window, they go out and bring in Donovan Green, I think a 5th or 6th year guy at the collegiate level. And then behind them, they love the high school recruiting guys they have, but they may be just a half year away, and they haven't shown it on the big field yet. So they're really close. They just need 1 more guy to sort of fill that gap. And then at the skill position, at running back, especially when you lose a guy like Bayshaw Tootin, went in the 4th round of the Jacksonville Jaguars, really kind of was the dynamite of the offense last year. Filling that in through a committee, I think, is going to be the only way because he was just such a dynamic player. And I think they like the guys they have. It's just really getting familiarized. Spring was drinking through a fire hose. You could just see every practice there was progression, but they were completely installing something brand new. Half of them were just figuring out where the classroom buildings were. So you saw that progression. But I mean, I think one guy that really gets overlooked with all these transfers and new guys coming in is Aiden Green. This is a guy who's coming into his 3rd year with the program now, had a really, really explosive bowl game against Minnesota when it was kind of his show to run. And I think he could step up as that lead guy in the receiver room and shock some people in the ACC.
Interesting. Running back, you said committee. If there is a guy who has the potential to make this thing not a committee, like probably not as much as Tootin did, but like somebody who can take up, like 60, 70% of the carries. Do you have that guy in mind?
Yeah, I think that'll be Terrion Stewart, the Bowling Green transfer. He was supposed to initially join for the spring, had to finish a class up at Bowling Green, so he'll join in within the summer. But this is a guy they went out and they found in the last window, and this was supposed to be the bell cow guy. I mean, really the top guy in the last cycle for them. 1 year left. I think they call him the bully. He's just a guy who will ground pound, not afraid to go in between the tackles. He took the lion's share of the carries last year at Bowling Green. So someone that Elijah Brooks, running backs coach, went out, found, and targeted straight off the jump. So they got their guy. I wish I could have seen more of him through spring because, I mean, those 15 practices are so valuable even for transfers. But he'll jump in the summer. I think that will be the guy moving forward.
Offensive line wise, you mentioned that they lose quite a few starters, obviously. Yeah. Who are the guys standing out who maybe could help to kind of soften the blow?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about in the offseason firing your offensive line coach and then the offensive coordinator going to Ohio State to be the offensive line coach. There's a lot of disruption with the transfer portal, losing Xavier Chaplin to Auburn, losing Braylon Moore down to LSU. You have none of the 5 guys who started last year still on the roster now, which is just wild to think. But some of those guys standing out who are returning, you talk about Johnny Garrett. Looks like he's might lock down that left tackle spot. He's been waiting in the wings. I remember last year is at the Old Dominion game in pregames, really, really crazy ordeal where Xavier Chaplin, they're going through warm-ups, and it looks like he just got rolled up on the very last play before they go back to the locker room. And you could just tell something wasn't right. He plays the first snap of that game, comes out, and then Johnny Garrett has to play the entire rest of the game. Now, granted, the offense didn't probably operate to the level they wanted, but a lot of that didn't fall on Garrett. I thought he played a really nice game on very short notice, picking up the game plan and executing. So that's a guy who's sort of been waiting his turn, and it looks like he's kind of taken it this spring. Another guy, Laith Ganem, was the number 1 player in West Virginia a couple cycles ago, and he looks like he's going to play inside at guard. He's made big progressions. He actually won the left guard job out of camp last year, had a medical deal dealing with a spleen, so he was out for the back half of last season, but a guy who's been showing consistent progression. And then I talked about it. You lose your offensive line coach, you bring in someone new. Matt Moore from West Virginia, he brought a lot of luggage with him. You talk about all Big 12 honorable mention, Tomas Rimac. He played guard last year for the Mountaineers, but this year it looks like he might kick out the tackle for Virginia Tech. And then at that center position, losing Braylon Moore to LSU, Coach Moore also brought along with him Kyle Altuner, the center, who's, look, honestly, maybe one of my MVPs of spring, just on what we were able to see, someone who really physical and kind of set the tone up front. And even Philip Montgomery, coaches would not be so inclined to pencil guys in this early in the year, but coming out of the spring game, he said, right now, that's the guy.
There you go. So offense has the potential to be better than what was last year, but got to have the right pieces fall into place.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the ceiling, there was a lot of confusion last year on certain aspects. So I think the pieces are there. It's just how is it going to mesh? So many of these guys are playing together for the first time. I think Montgomery said even after the spring game, they're only about halfway through an install, and you can only install so much. So, and then going into the summer period. So fall camp's going to be so critical to get everyone back on the same page, because if you only get half the playbook and then you talk about your quarterback missing half of that, the guy who's going to be signal calling for everything, it's kind of hard to get everyone on the same page. So this summer will be really big to try and just get everyone assimilated, and they'll be in their own version of summer school, I guess.
Exactly. All right, Kolby, let's take a little break, and on the flip side, we will hit a little defense.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
And welcome back to the Cover 3 College Football Podcast, your summer school edition, Virginia Tech. We got Kolby Crawford talking to us today about these Hokies. So new OC, but also new DC. Sam, how do I say this? Seifkiss? Seifkiss. Okay, got it. So it brings some multiple looks, maybe some NFL experience that's kind of just random, boilerplate stuff. What are they going to run and why?
That's an incredible question, and a question we've been asking all spring. I think the big thing with this coaching staff right now, back against the wall. Like you said, last year you underperformed. You're really kind of going all in right now. You're throwing everything at the wall, seeing what can stick. You bring in 2 brand new coordinators, schemes that haven't been put on collegiate tape in a couple seasons, a guy who has been in the NFL, hasn't been running his own scheme. So you think about that first matchup against South Carolina, and it's really going to be a who knows what, because you've played one spring game, didn't really show much. But from what we can tell, it's probably going to be a very multiple front, but they played 3 high safety looks with the Cardinals. It looks like there's going to be 5 DBs with a nickel look in there, 2 inside backers, and probably 4 guys up front there. So they're going to be very multiple, but he just wants to play fast with the ball, guys who can play all around, and a different look. I mean, this defense has in years past, I remember the first couple of years of the Pride tenure just weren't really able to turn the ball over, have those explosive plays. It kind of turned a corner last year, but not to the extent they wanted. Obviously made a change at defensive coordinator. The search for the defensive coordinator that they got took a little bit longer than maybe some fans wanted, but I think Pry was really intent on getting Cephas a younger guy. And yeah, I mean, we'll see how it plays out because there's still so much questions. What we saw at practice was very limited, but I think they're going to do very multiple looks up front, guys. Hand in the ground one play, shifting around. And you saw some of that last year in the defense, but I think to a whole new extent this year.
So you mentioned 5 defensive backs. They lost a ton in the secondary. They also brought in quite a bit in the portal. What are we looking like at the back end there?
Coach Pry, for the last couple of years, if there's one position group that he feels like the team probably was lacking in the most, it was the DB secondary. And they certainly addressed the needs in the portal. In the spring portal, I think they brought in 4 safeties just alone. And that's aside from high school guys who were even there on campus. So they brought in, specifically at the safety position, Tyson Flowers from Rice, who has come in and I think arguably the defensive MVP for the defensive side of the ball. Has a really great spring adjusting, a guy who looks like he could wear the C on his chest as a transfer. Sherrod Koval Jr., local Virginia guy, big pitch for Virginia Tech in the transfer portal. This guy's from the state of Virginia who went somewhere else and then just coming back home. So a guy who went to Clemson for a couple of years, using his last year here at Virginia Tech, went down to Sam Houston State, got Isaiah Cash, and then also down to New Mexico and brought in Christian Ellis. Sorry. And then so those 4 guys. And then also at the nickelback position, where honestly Virginia Tech was running the star position, the star linebacker more last year, but it looks like Isaiah Brown Murray from East Carolina is kind of locked down that nickel position. So they have completely reloaded on the back end. And then you talk about, especially at that safety position, last year, true freshman Quentin Reddish from Charlotte, North Carolina, he kind of established himself. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Quentin Reddish still starting at that safety position as a true sophomore. But they completely reloaded. Now, in this last window, in the spring window, they still just went out and got a Hawaii cornerback because a guy who they thought was going to contribute this year, Josh Clark, looks like he may miss some time down with an injury. But they definitely reloaded on the back end, and it's been a position of emphasis.
What about the front there?
Yeah, and along the front as well. Virginia Tech's probably the last couple of years hasn't maybe had that true nose tackle guy, and it looks like the way they're recruiting, they've been going for maybe a closer look to that. One really intriguing guy that they went out and got, Jazari Priester from Hampton. I'm not sure how his impact will be this year, but just his frame, he's really big, probably 6'4", 6'5", a little over 300 pounds, but he looks and moves almost like a linebacker. He's so nimble, but can just plug holes. And then on the edges positions, you bring in guys like James Jonkum from Eastern Michigan, played Mike linebacker last year, made the transition to edge. We talked to him. He said it feels like the game is moving so much slower. He can just go play quick, had a great spring, as well as Texas State edge Ben Bell. He was dealing with a little arm injury towards down the end of the stretch. He should be back for fall camp. Those 2 guys looked positioned to really make an impact getting after the quarterback. They bring in other guys from Mercer, transfer Arius Nash. And then you have returning guys, Emmett Laws, highly rated guy from DeMatha in Maryland, who showed out in the bowl game. And other guys like Gerard Johnson, who has put on incredible weight since his high school days and looks like he might factor in there. So sort of mixing that in. Keyshawn Burgos was the guy who started on the edge last year. So I really think this defense, schematically and also the personnel that he's been able to foster and bring in, could raise the ceiling and honestly also the floor.
Nice, man. So this schedule opens kind of difficult with a really good defense in South Carolina, Vanderbilt team that beat them last year, obviously, and then a couple other tough ones at Georgia Tech won't be easy. We'll see what Cal is. Louisville's probably not an easy one. Miami, we'll see what FSU and Virginia are. How would you define success for the Hokies this year?
Yeah, I mean, success is definitely keeping the bowl streak alive, and you got to. You don't want to put a cap on it, but 6 wins again would really be a stinger coming off of last year. I think the way it's going to get gauged is you got to try and get to at least 7, push for 8 wins, and try and win and make some statements and put postseason play. I mean, I know bowl games are what they are now, but it seems like perennially a 6-6 program. At least you want to talk about the nomenclature of or the feeling around people in Blacksburg right now. It's another 6-6 season or anything less is just not going to cut it as a standard. So wouldn't say pressure, but I think everyone understands, from the athletic department, the coaching staff, to just the whole surrounding population, that's kind of where they're at, and you got to make some strides there. So like you said, you start off with a really tough South Carolina team on the road, nationally televised game, and then you come right back into Lane Stadium the next weekend, a team that you thought you were going to go handle on the road to start last year and sort of kick off a really big momentous push for this program, and they kind of smashed it all down. So it's a really tough start to the year. And in those last 4 weeks, you mentioned Louisville, and then you go down to Tallahassee, then Miami comes up, and then you get Virginia. And I know that rivalry has been what it is, 23 out of the last 25 or whatever it is. Virginia's coming off a bye that last week. And you talk about the guys they went on, got. Like, I mean, any given Saturday, that's how it goes. So you got to go handle your business. And I think just executing on the small things. Now, like I mentioned, they're really going to lean into the fact there's not a lot of tape out there on these two coordinators. You're bringing so many new players. So I think it's going to be a scrappy bunch, really leaning into maybe those old Beamer days where you don't win putting up 80 points, but you win dirty with 3 turnovers and just really fighting it out, doing all the small things on special teams and locking that in.
100%. Kolby, really enjoyed this, man. I'll be watching Virginia Tech all year and following you guys. Great coverage.
Thanks, bud.